everybody. Sharon is my online friend. I think this is the first time we met in person. All right, clicker, here we go. Okay, so folks, I am May Habib, co-founder of Writer. We are almost 5 years old, and we started in 2020 to productize on top of transformers, which we have been building in-house with our in-house research lab since 2020, which means it has been the Eras Tour of generative AI with a product that looks very different today, and not surprising given the kinds of talks today and what general purpose LLMs can do now. We are deep in making agentic AI work inside of the enterprise. And before the panel, I'd love to share some frameworks that have really helped us bring agentic AI to the enterprise in ways that have scaled. The first is this rubric right here. Not every job in the enterprise requires nor needs, nor is allowed a fully autonomous agentic system. And we have indeed seen a range of outcomes that are really impactful, building along a spectrum of structured workflow from very unstructured productivity and ideation sessions all the way to very structured work, and then a level of autonomy from lower autonomy to much higher autonomy as we guardrail a general purpose model here more or less aggressively given what a user is trying to do. And when you apply that with a definition for agentic, for the enterprise, suddenly folks have got a framing for what they can do. And we work with everybody from a Uber that obviously knows its way around AI to a Vanguard and a Franklin Templeton, literally 150-year-old organizations where folks are like, what do you mean by an agent? And everybody is pitching them agentic, and they really do need a way to think about the autonomy and delegation of what these agentic systems can do. So this is our framing, level 1 to level 4, and it really helps people frame their thinking. From a UX perspective, we've had to create, I think there's a video here. Let's see if I play it, clicking next. Not sure. Oh. Thanks, folks. We've had to create different UX paradigms for the enterprise to think about approaching agentic from a more structured, less autonomous way to a much more autonomous, much less structured way. And those two UX paradigms have really helped. They are both natural language driven. So the workflow that was up there for a second that felt more left to right versus a workbench like what you see here, those are both very natural language driven, but in the one that is workflow based, you are able to specify these are the ERP systems that I need you to use versus the model really deciding in a specific context. So what we have seen with just incredible speed here is the amount of productivity that folks are achieving. And we have seen it in situations where the enterprise has set up a greenfield opportunity and really tried to build around a agentic capability versus staffing up or doing things the old way, where folks have been able to run a whole division or a whole project with 10% of the headcount that they would have done only a few years ago. And that is really, really incredible. That is the future that I think we are getting to. It is going to be very much in a few years enterprise work being about managing AI that does the work versus truly being the ones that do work very manually. And in a world where that is the case, as we have heard from other speakers, supervision really becomes quite paramount. And this is where we spend a lot of our research time. This is where we spend a lot of our product energy right now. And what we have seen is really, from a security perspective, Yes, you need end-to-end decryption and audit trails and isolated cloud infrastructure. That is table stakes. Agents introduce a set of new challenges because they're not following fixed logic. And it means that you are really trying to contain behavior versus securing a workflow. And that new agentic primitive that we've developed is around the sandbox environment. And the reality is, for a lot of these tools and systems that we interact with in a real-world environment, the enterprise doesn't have a sandbox environment. You might have it for Salesforce, you might have it for SAP, but no other systems truly have a sandbox environment with data that mimics the real-world data the agent is going to be interacting with. It means we are synthesizing it. And that is a very, very exciting way to think about how you secure agents. The second primitive in that transparency bucket is around reasoning traceability, because dashboards are dead. You cannot build and dashboard your way to transparency around these agentic decision-making processes, but you do need real-world visibility into the operations, the reasoning of these agents, and to the alignment with the guardrails and to the goals. And that's really how we have to evaluate the agentic performance. And lastly, and most importantly, control. In the past, control meant setting permissions for users per a particular system. But you don't really permit a human, right? And you don't permit a coworker. You delegate authority with clear boundaries, and we need that to transfer over to agentic systems. And this primitive of control that we've developed here is about designing safe delegation paths for agents, and we have developed and all need to further work on the governance frameworks that define an agent's scope of authority, and then, of course, the ability to constrain that and make sure that's what actually happened. So this is what we think defines the new enterprise. The organization becomes much more this dynamic living network of people and agents and systems, all connected by delegation logic, by execution loops, by escalation paths, by goals set for the organization that apply equally to agents and humans. Who delegates to whom, what agent is best for what job. We are very soon going to have AI that hires humans, right? You wrap an MCP server around an API that hires experts, and we have a much more complex organization than the org charts that we've got today. Thank you.